Hello and welcome to lecture number 61, topic 4.8, the arts, music, and the politics of freedom. There's two learning objectives, and the first one is explain how artists, performers, poets, and musicians of African descent advocated for racial equality and brought international attention to the Black freedom movement. Black artists during the Black freedom movement contributed significantly to the struggle for racial equality through a wide range of creative expressions. This included literature such as James Baldwin's essays in his book The Fire Next Time, which eloquently addressed the realities of racial injustices in America. Similarly, Nina Simone used her music to inspire change, penning powerful songs like Mississippi Goddamn, which was about resistance to integration efforts and dismantling of Jim Crow. Similarly, John Coltrane wrote a song titled Alabama after the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Visual artists like Jacob Lawrence used their art to express the African American experience, as seen in the painting on the screen, Soldiers and Students, which depicts the 1957 Little Rock crisis. Playwrights like Lorraine Hansberry also played a key role with her groundbreaking play A Raisin in the Sun, shedding light on the struggles of Black families and barriers they faced in economic mobility. These Black artists not only amplified African American resistance, but also made systemic inequality more visible to global audiences. Their work pressured the United States to move towards enforcing civil rights, especially during the Cold War, when the nation sought to present itself as a moral alternative to communism in the Soviet Union. The contrast between America's professed ideals and its racial injustices became a point of international scrutiny, with artists and activists exposing these contradictions on the world stage. Beyond the United States, Black artists strengthened their solidarity among Afro-descendant communities across the African diaspora. For instance, their work inspired anti-colonial movements in Africa, including the independence struggles in Ghana, which became the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence in 1957. Movements such as the fight against apartheid in South Africa also drew strength from these artistic expressions. South African singer Miriam Makeba, often referred to as Mama Africa, left South Africa in response to apartheid and befriended activist singer Nina Simone, joining to give performances that highlighted discrimination around the world. One specific example the College Board highlights is the poet Nicolas Guillen, a prominent figure in the Negrismo literary movement. Guillen, who we've already discussed in this course, used his poetry to examine the connections between anti-Black racism in the United States and Latin America. He denounced the systems of segregation and the enduring colonial legacies in his home country of Cuba. Through poems such as The Flowers Grow Tall, Guillen demonstrated the links between American racism against African Americans and the economic imperialism practiced by the United States in the Caribbean and Latin America. Guillen explicitly addressed racial violence and segregation in the United States in two notable poems. The first, Little Rock, was written in response to the integration of Little Rock Central High School in 1957, highlighting the challenges and resistance faced by Black students during desegregation. The second, Elegia a Emmett Till, or Elegy for Emmett Till, published in the NAACP's journal The Crisis, exposed the hypocrisy of the U.S. government and its failure to provide federal protections for African Americans subjected to racial violence. Guillen's work brought Black freedom struggles to audiences far beyond the United States. As a celebrated poet in Latin America, he used his platform to draw attention to Jim Crow laws and the systemic injustices African Americans faced. By bringing international attention to these issues, Guillen helped illuminate the interconnectedness of racial oppression and economic exploitation, urging his audiences to recognize how these systems operated globally. This approach was particularly significant during the Cold War, as anti-racist and anti-colonial movements challenged the Western narrative of moral superiority. The next artist highlighted by the College Board is Charles Mingus, a renowned jazz bassist and one of the most influential jazz musicians of the 20th century. Mingus began his career playing with several major figures in the 1940s, but he truly came into his own during the 1950s. He founded his own record label, Debut Records, which allowed him some creative freedom. As his fame grew, he signed with Columbia Records, the same label that represented other jazz greats like Miles Davis and Duke Ellington, cementing his status as a major figure in the jazz world. Mingus composed protest songs deeply rooted in African American musical traditions, such as call and response patterns and syncopation. While his works were largely instrumental, his musical style conveyed powerful messages, drawing from African influences to address discrimination and racism in the United States. For example, Haitian Fight Song, an instrumental piece, was deeply personal for Mingus. He described his solo in the song as having a contemporary folk feeling, saying he could only play it correctly if he thought about prejudice, hate, and persecution. Mingus explained that the music expressed sadness and cries, but also determination, and he hoped listeners would hear and understand his message. Another significant composition was Fables of Faubus, written in 1959. This piece directly critiqued Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus, who infamously called in the National Guard to prevent the integration of Little Rock Central High School. The original version of the song includes lyrics such as, "Oh Lord, don't let him shoot us. Oh Lord, don't let him stab us. Oh Lord, no more swastikas. Oh Lord, no more Ku Klux Klan." However, Columbia Records censored the lyrics due to the over-criticism of white supremacist responses to racial integration. Mingus eventually released the uncensored version of the song in the 1960s after switching to a more independent label, ensuring his message reached audiences. The second learning objective is explain how faith and music inspired African Americans to combat continuing discrimination during the Civil Rights Movement. Faith and music were both central elements of inspiration and community mobilization during the Civil Rights Movement. Faith provided activists with strength and resilience, and its message of liberation and deliverance were often woven into the songs sung during protests. These songs, known as freedom songs, were adaptations of hymns, spirituals, gospel songs, and even labor union songs. One well-known example, which we'll talk about more later, is "We Shall Overcome," which is originally used as a protest song during a worker strike. The blending of music and faith was not new. It was rooted in African American traditions that had long used songs as a means of expressing hope and resistance. This tradition harkened back to the era of slavery, when spirituals like "Go Down Moses" carried themes of deliverance and the fight for freedom, drawing directly from biblical narratives. These connections resonated deeply with civil rights activists who saw themselves as modern-day agents of liberation. Black churches were critical to the success of the movement. They served as both spaces for organizing and sources of spiritual nourishment, where activists could gather, strategize, and find inspiration. With these sacred spaces, a broad range of musical genres was adapted to create songs that would help activists strengthen their resolve. Freedom songs were not just melodies. They were tools of resistance, hope, and unity. They connected the civil rights movement to earlier struggles for justice and equality, while inspiring generations to fight for change. These songs are powerful testaments to the resilience and courage of those who dared to dream of a brighter future. Freedom songs inspired countless African Americans, many of whom risked their lives and endured jail time for their cause. These songs created hopeful messages that made their sacrifices feel worthwhile, and during challenging times or when protests seemed to stall, freedom songs helped unify and rejuvenate the spirit of activists. The communal act of singing fostered solidarity, especially when the lyrics carried a hopeful message. For example, "This Little Light of Mine" inspired participants to persevere even in the face of adversity. You can see the lyrics on the screen are "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." The positivity behind the lyrics and melody inspired greater resolve in the face of adversity or discrimination. Freedom songs also acted as a practical tool for guiding activists. For example, when marching or participating in sit-ins, they often sang songs like "Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around" and "We Shall Not Be Moved." These songs served as a reminder to stay steadfast. One of the most notable performances of "We Shall Not Be Moved" occurred during the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, where it was performed by the Freedom Singers. The chorus of the song powerfully stated, "We shall not be moved, we shall not be moved, we shall not be moved, we shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved." The third line being a biblical reference to a psalm of someone who is well nourished because of their faith in God. Finally, freedom songs conveyed hopes for a better and more inclusive future. For example, the song "Oh Freedom" expresses a deep yearning for liberation and equality. Its lyrics reflected the movement's aspiration for justice. "Oh freedom, oh freedom, oh freedom over me, and before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave, and go home to my Lord and be free." The song's roots trace back to the post-Civil War era, reflecting the long-standing struggles of African Americans for freedom and dignity. The College Board specifically highlights "We Shall Overcome" as a cornerstone of the civil rights movement and an exemplar of the power of freedom songs. The songs first emerged as a protest anthem during the 1945 to 1946 strike by black tobacco workers in South Carolina. Its origins are a blend of European hymns and African American spiritual traditions. Enslaved people once sang "No More Auction Block for Me," and its melody and spirit were later combined with lyrics from a hymn by Reverend Charles Tindley. Reverend Tindley, an influential composer of early gospel music, was also central to the discussion on spirituals that we explored earlier. The song's simplicity and emotional resonance made it accessible to everyone regardless of their musical ability. It became a unifying anthem for protests and civil rights demonstrations. President Lyndon B. Johnson even invoked the song's powerful message when announcing the Voting Rights Act in 1965, ending his speech with the words, "We shall overcome." Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. often referred to We Shall Overcome as the anthem of the civil rights movement. Its themes deeply influenced his 1966 speech of the same name, which he used as a rallying cry for justice. In his speech, Dr. King echoed the lyrics of the song as a repeating motif as he describes the struggle of the movement. You know, I've joined hands so often with students and others behind jail bars singing it, We Shall Overcome. Sometimes we've had tears in our eyes when we joined together to sing it, but we still decided to sing it, We Shall Overcome. Oh, before this victory's won, some will have to get thrown in jail some more, but we shall overcome. As King described it, We Shall Overcome was not just a song, but a declaration of hope and determination. Activists sang it while marching in the streets, during protests, and even in jail cells. The song reminded them of their shared mission and fortified their resolve to endure hardships for the greater cause of equality. And finally, here's the recap. Black artists contributed to the freedom movement by publicizing their arts to a wider global audience. Nicolas Guillen wrote poems which highlighted the racism in the US and lack of protections from government. Charles Mingus, through jazz, brought attention to Southern segregation. The Black Church provided a space for organizing where freedom songs could evolve to help the movement. And We Shall Overcome was the anthem of the civil rights movement. Thank you for watching. If you would like to watch the next lecture, click the thumbnail on the screen. And if you would like more resources to help you study, you can visit apushslides.com/afam. I wish you the best of luck with your studies, and I hope to see you back on the next lecture.